Hello, Eva.
Hi. Hi, Ms. Coulter. I just want to know what your thoughts are on Obamacare and the White House's accusations of astroturfing these town hall meetings.
First, on the astroturfing, I totally love this because it does fulfill my aphorism that you know what liberals are up to by what they accuse you of. And in this particular case, oh gosh, we have a lot of evidence on that. There's this guy, Sean Treglia, who was written up in the New York Post and in an article in the Wall Street Journal by John Fund, who slipped after the campaign finance law was signed by Bush, and I think after it was upheld by the Supreme Court, saying, this guy, Sean Treglia, I don't know how to pronounce his name, T-R-E-G-L-I-A, he worked for Pew, and he said, this was 8 left-wing foundations. There's no grassroots movement, but we totally faked them out. And it's right there. He's on tape. He's saying it. And, you know, common sense. The people, they're calling for campaign finance reform. Nobody cared. And yet, politicians were fooled into believing it was true. I was just talking earlier about at the Bush League schools. And by the way, the particularly worst ones, which I don't even think of as Bush League schools, but the Jesuit schools are especially bad at turning out little monsters. But in this particular case, Loyola in Chicago, apparently they weren't even students because they were standing in the back screaming their heads off with the most vulgar things I've ever heard. I can't even repeat them to my friends as I was speaking. And there were a lot of cops there, so they arrest the first guy. The rest got, struggles, so then you get all the cops out of the room. But anyway, the cop who arrested some of them later told my bodyguard at the speech, which I need on college campuses, because they're such little peaceful darlings, told the cop he wasn't a student, he was just there because somebody paid him to disrupt an Ann Coulter speech. And I sort of wanted to sue just to find out, is it Soros? Is it CARE? Who is paying him? Is it Acorn to disrupt an Ann Coulter speech? So, okay, that is fact number 2. We know that Acorn, in a lot of the crazy things they're pushing, aren't supported by the public, not by the neighborhoods. They go and round up homeless people, give them a box lunch, and say, come stand outside and protest. So, I mean, this has been, I believe, AstroTurf, in a favorable way, was a phrase invented by David Axelrod. This is a specialty of the left, and you can clearly see from even the videos that are presented on liberal media sites. I mean, you can see for one thing, there are a lot of old people, and old people are concerned about what Obama's going to do with health care, and they ought to be concerned with what Obama's going to do with health care. So, suddenly you won't be able to get a hip operation, but you will be able to get assisted suicide pills. Well, that'll be cost saving. And health care, leading us straight into health care. All we need is a free market in health insurance and in doctors. And I wrote about this a few weeks ago in a column called Take 2 Aspirin and Call Me When Your Cancer is Stage 4. Because it's really, I mean, the problem with health care is already that there's too much socialism. Only Democrats would wreck something by government intervention and then say, oh, we need more government intervention to fix it. No, we need less government intervention. And I mean, I'm more libertarian than Cato on this one. They want these health savings accounts. How about a book savings account? So people can, put aside tax-free money to buy my books. I mean, capitalism has produced the most amazing goods and services. Who thought, you don't remember, but it wasn't that long ago, but you were kids when a cell phone, it was the size of this podium, and it was like having a limousine. It was this totally exotic thing. You got a boyfriend with a cell phone. I'm really styling now. Okay, you give it a little free market magic, and now, every welfare recipient has a cell phone. Every welfare recipient has a flat screen TV. Do that with health care so that we choose with our own dollars to buy doctors, to pay for their services, the way we pay for the Genius Bar at the Apple Store, the way we pay for our own hair to get done. I mean, people will spend $200 on a haircut, $100 on a manicure and a pedicure. They go to see a doctor with, you know, 8 years of training and schooling, and they're indignant if they have more than a $20 copay. Well, no, you have to, you know, brush that aside, buy doctors the way you buy everyone else, but most importantly, buy health insurance on a free market. You can't buy health insurance the way you buy insurance for anything else. If you get health insurance for a car, that's in case you get in an accident. It's not so everyone on your plan shares the cost of gasoline. Well, that's what health care is. You can't buy a program, and it varies state to state, and then the federal puts all these requirements on, that a health insurance company can't sell you insurance if it's just going to insure you against, you know, things like heart disease and cancer. It has to insure you against possibly having a recovered memory that your father raped you when you were an infant, or marriage counseling. Well, you say, you know, if you're pretty sure your father didn't rape you, you can skip those health care plans. You can skip the health care plans with acupuncture and aromatherapy. Or it's like having insurance for your house. You get insurance for your house in case there's a hurricane, a flood, a fire. Not so. We all share the cost of maid service. But that's what health care plans are. So, this is a perfect example where the federal government does have a right under the Constitution. Under the Interstate Commerce Clause, the states are not allowing insurance companies to sell the insurance that people want or would want if they paid for it themselves, to have a free market in health insurance, a free market in medical care, and you'll see costs come down and more cures being invented. It'll be a wonderful thing, and you won't wait so long.
Thank you. God bless.
Hi, Anne. You wrote an article not long ago on, it was a summarisation on George Bush's foreign policy, to which I agreed with every word. Do you think there'll ever be an acceptance that the intervention in Iraq was the correct thing to do?
Yes.
And also, do you have any opinions on the British Conservative Party?
I was wondering, I did not think that was a Southern accent. No, I know absolutely nothing about your country except that I like Tony Blair. Don't really like the current guy. Ooh. All I know is that he supported the war in Iraq. Do I need to know more about him? As an American, that's all I really cared about. And he was rock solid on the war in Iraq. And yeah, I must say, until 9/11 and the invention of the airplane, I tend to agree much more with, well, this will mean nothing to you unless you know a lot more about my country than I know about yours, with, you know, the Ron Paul, Pat Buchanan isolationist view. I don't want to be the world's policeman. I don't think we should be busting up every barroom fight. For example, in Bosnia, just to drop a little footnote there, but I don't know how else you deal with the threat of international terrorism without giving democracy a foothold and, you know, U.S. bases a foothold in the Middle East. I mean, these Arab countries, well, not just Arab countries, but a lot of these countries in the Middle East, the Muslim countries, they're ruled by dictators, and they tell their people the reason you're living in dirt is because of Israel and the great Satan. Well, it's harder to say that already right now when you have Iraqis voting. You had even Thomas Friedman in the New York Times admitted a few weeks ago after, I guess it was an election in Lebanon. It was funny, he said, all the Lebanese kept coming up to him and saying, this never would have happened without Iraq. The Americans were saying, it's all Obama. That was American liberals, no place near Lebanon. And, you know, the same thing with the enthusiasm for freedom in Iran. I don't think you'd see that without Iraq. I just don't think there's any question about that. In addition to the fact that I just don't understand the position that no will be Fortress America, which I'm generally in favor of, and then when we're attacked, we'll just strike back at the people who hit us. Well, the people who hit us are, you know, sleeping under a camel at night. They're being funded by state sponsors who are hiding their involvement. It's not like Japan flying in with planes with the Japanese flag on it. You don't know. Taking out the occasional terrorist camp, or as George Bush said about Bill Clinton's foreign policy, I'm not just going to shoot off a missile to hit the rear end of a camel. You really do have to, in some ways, remake the Middle East. That doesn't mean we have to go into country after country, but wow, Iraq was a good start.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that thing with Tony Blair. Very aggressive right-wingers there. But they are well-dressed. It's a well-dressed mob of Britons.